Wie geht es Ihnen?
I'm totally tired, didn't sleep for 3 nights, and the less I sleep, the fitter I am
boy.
during the day. I don't know what that is, but I'm well.
That's a good talent. I wish I had. I'm going to start by asking you about entrepreneurship. Your colleagues in Germany said it's something you're passionate about. It's something we're passionate about at Insider. Bob Iger famously went from being the weatherman to the CEO of Disney. You famously went from being a music critic to the CEO of Axel Springer. What advice would you have for us, for the entrepreneurial staff of Insider? How do you go from the bottom to the top? What's the recipe?
Well, there is no recipe. There is no secret. I'm an accident of German business history that a musician can become a music critic and then run a media company, which shows that, and that would be perhaps my advice, that planning a career is very hard. And if you plan too much, you limit your options. And the only thing you should do is follow your passion. Because if you do what you're really passionate about, and that was in my case, dealing with language, with journalism, with information, in a way living up to my curiosity, then you are, then the likelihood that you are doing well is high. And then things like a career develop automatically. Don't plan too much, follow your passion.
What was your big break?
You mean the turning point, or what do you mean by break in that context?
What gave you the ability to become the CEO of the company? I mean, it's well documented that you had a mentor who thought you would be great running the company.
I actually didn't have so much a mentor. It was that I started as a music journalist, was always passionate about journalism, and then had certain interests in doing my own magazine or run own things. So there was a kind of entrepreneurial instinct. And so I switched sites a couple of times, worked as a chief of staff for a media manager. And that was interesting for me. I learned something from him. And then I became editor-in-chief. And then one day I was just, because I was advocating digitization heavily, I was asked, wouldn't you like to manage something in the company? I didn't want to. And so it was actually, it's pretty complicated and chaotic. So I cannot tell you really how it developed. And there was no turning point or no epiphany, not at all. It was more coincidence, intuition.
Got it.
Luck, perhaps also we should admit luck sometimes.
Sometimes luck.
No,
absolutely.
Honestly, I think luck is one of the most underrated things. If we think it's our own genius that led us there, then we are in trouble. So I'm very, very humbly thankful for the luck that I had in life.
Great. So it's been a momentous year for us, the Pulitzer Prize. Politico is very likely to win one for their Supreme Court scoop about Roe versus Wade. Tell us what you think has been successful about our brand, about their brand. What are the expectations moving forward? What's likely to change?
Okay, let's perhaps talk more about Insider. I think a really important fact is that this company has been founded by a journalistic mind, Henry, and that journalism content, the quality mattered from the very beginning. At the same time, I think a very important turning point for Insider's development was the implementation of paid content, because paid content does not incentivize only clicks with kind of super punchy headlines. It really kind of focus on the quality and the relevance of the story. And I think that has developed Insider's journalistic relevance and quality big times. And that, I think, is now the decisive fundament for future success.
So where are we going next? Will it be, I guess the question most employees might have is, might we see more integration with Politico? No. Might we see more mobility between the two publications?
We are very skeptical about this kind of typical corporate nonsense of integration, mergers, synergies, matrix structures that all distracts from the real focus on the product and on entrepreneurial initiatives and on growth. So we rather have the structure for the company. It's a smaller and smaller kind of headquarter of Axel Springer with more and more empowered independent brands. And that is on the journalistic side, mainly Insider, Politico, Morning Brew, Bild, Welt, Onet in Poland. Those are the 6 most relevant brands, and they are run pretty independently. And every informal corporation where journalists, for example, for this international investigative initiative that we have started, that brands from different countries can work on a real big story, which they could never do alone. That is, of course, appreciated, but I really count on the kind of bottom-up initiatives and not on top-down synergies.
So you see them being still very separate, despite the fact that we're in this environment right now that's pretty tricky. Yeah. We have layoffs everywhere. Every single company I'm writing about is laying people off. Are you looking for efficiencies? What kind of things are you thinking about in terms of how Backroom could be combined maybe? Tell us about where things are going in 2023. Well, you should always be as efficient
as possible, but I think you can be more efficient in these kind of independent entrepreneurial units. They can be built up in a very lean and market-oriented and customer-oriented and I mean, content-oriented spirit. That you have, I mean, Insider was hiring more than 200 journalists last year. And during the pandemic, we have been investing and investing and investing. And that was the right strategy because we were growing and faster and faster. Now we are in a pretty unique series of crises or simultaneous crises. With a very kind of unknown outcome, whether we will see the recovery in the second half of next year, which I personally believe and hope, or whether it's going to take longer and the crisis will be deeper. So we have to be reactive to the environment. We cannot just stubbornly say, well, we have hired 2,000 last year, we'll hire 200 this year. We have to be kind of flexible, but the main priority remains growth, investment, hiring the best talent, but here and there, if we see there are inefficiencies or we have to react or adapt to certain macro developments, then we may also lay off people. That is always a bit of both. We have done that for many years in that spirit, but for Insider and for Politico and for Morning Brew, the main focus remains accelerated growth.
Well, it's good to hear you say that you believe that there'll be a shallow recession, or at least it might be relatively short. When you look at some of the other digital media companies out there, whether it's Vox or it's Vice or it's BuzzFeed, it looks like those valuations have gone significantly down. Do you see us doing more M&A in the future? If not right now, then perhaps
We've
soon?
done quite a bit of M&A over the last years. I would rather say the focus will be more on organic investment. We have so perfectly positioned brands that are doing so well. Why defocus on too much M&A? Let's rather invest in what we have and what is developing so promisingly.
Good. Tell me about KKR. They're Axel Springer's owners, private equity company. What are their expectations for you? Are they happy to continue investing at the rate they are? What kind of feedback are you getting from them?
I think that was perhaps the luckiest move that we made shortly before the pandemic started to take the company private. Had we been publicly listed, we probably would have been forced to do exactly what almost every publicly listed media company did. Cutting all investments, cost reduction, layoffs, and basically company in stall mode. We had a first shareholder meeting with KKR and said we would like to continue to invest. And the reaction was, yeah, that's right, but you should be a bit more courageous. You should invest a little more. We did that biggest investment wave that we ever did, a significant three-digit amount of million into our existing businesses. It paid off last year. The company had, for the first time as a whole company, as parent company, organic double-digit top-line growth. We have never seen that over the last decades. So that is extremely encouraging. And KKR is in for 5 to 7 years. They want to multiply the valuation of the company. So they do today what will pay off in 3, in 5, in 7 years. And that is compared to what we had as a publicly listed company. Next quarter's earnings, a very kind of long-term entrepreneurial approach, which helps us at the moment.
So, I mean, times of recession are good times to buy assets. Are you saying that there's really won't be any M&A?
No, I'm not saying it won't be M&A. I'm not just saying it is not our main focus. We are rather focusing on organic investments. But if there are opportunities, and exactly in the spirit that you have just mentioned, undervalued or reasonably valued assets, of course, we would love to take advantage. Let's be a little patient. I think things will get worse before they get better. And then that's the moment. When everybody believes the world goes under, then we are buying.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you. You've been in the press a lot lately, New York Magazine, the Washington Post. It feels like perhaps that's a reaction to us buying Politico. I'm not sure. Does Axel Springer have a desire to be a more well-known media brand in the US? Do you want more press? What's the story there?
Well, actually, it's a fine line. On the one hand, I think we should create news about other people and not news about ourselves. Formulate nice headlines, but not be the object of headlines. At the same time, in Europe, we are a well-known brand and company, and people know our values, our history, our products. In America, we are basically a new kid on the block, and it's like a kind of empty space that we, to a certain degree, have to fill. Most important is through actions and deeds, not through announcement or PR statements. But that the interest is now a little higher is okay, and I can deal with that. I mean, we should not be too shy. We live from that. We do that with other people, so why shouldn't they do that with us?
Mm-hmm. Okay. You are a journalist at heart, and it seems that you're still a journalist, even though you're a CEO. How involved are you in stories like the Politico scoop or the Dave Portnoy story that we ran?
I think it is very important for the successful governance of a media brand that you protect editorial independence. I think that is the fundament. You have to decide whether you want to have journalists that obey or whether you want to have journalists that excel. And a kind of anti-authoritarian mentality is the fundament of that. So whenever we would try to interfere, particularly before something is published, I think that would go wrong. So they are here and there super, super important stories where you get a call and where perhaps it has also very important legal implications. And then you briefly discuss how sure are we that the facts are right and that the sources, which we don't know and don't want to know, but that they're serious and we have enough and so on, enough sources. So these things then may be occasionally, very rarely discussed. But I would say 99% or 99.8% of the cases, we read or see the stuff once it's published, and sometimes we like it, sometimes we dislike it, but that doesn't matter. Our taste, my taste, has zero impact on our reporting. I'm a very kind of long-term admirer of Elon Musk, and Insider is one of the most outspoken brands in criticizing and disclosing investigative scoops on Elon Musk, and I think I congratulate.
Okay, so you raised Elon Musk. Let's go there.
Oh my goodness, what a tactical mistake.
Elon suspended Kanye West, for tweeting a symbol of a star with a swastika in the middle. And he suspended him. Should he have just got rid of him permanently? Is a suspension sufficient?
I think it is a very important gesture that this clearly was not accepted, and that Twitter showed under this new governance that there are limits, and that freedom of expression does not mean to advocate racism, intolerance, anti-Semitism, hate that affects other people's freedoms. And so here, in that case, so clearly a border was crossed that I think it was the right gesture. But apart from that, I mean, these discussions on free speech, it's very, very complicated. And,
it is. It took Elon quite some time to get there, though, didn't it? I mean, Kanye had said a lot of anti-Semitic things. Yeah. People are worried about anti-Semitism, the growth of anti-Semitism, the Holocaust deniers in the US. What do you say to employees who are concerned about that and who worry about the fact that, you know, Elon has very objectionable people populating Twitter right now? What's your view on that?
Well, I think it's an open-ended case where we really have to see how this discussion of freedom of speech versus their limits, because it affects other people's freedom, how that ends. One should be careful in betting against Elon. I think this case, Kanye West, shows that there is a sensitivity. But to your question, if employees worry about that, I think that's very good. That's very healthy. And of course, we in Germany have even stricter standards. In Germany, it is in our constitutional law that the denial of the Holocaust is illegal for very good reasons, because of the German history during the Holocaust. Germany has killed 6 million Jews. So there is a higher sensitivity. But I think growing sensitivity for that, for all forms of racism, is very important.
You offered to run Twitter. You said it would be fun.
Yeah, you should have listened to our
suggestion.
You
said it would be fun. How would you rate the job he's doing right now?
Let's, as Reed Hastings said, give him a break. Yeah.
Give him a break.
Yeah, I mean, I found it interesting what Reed said. I mean, everybody criticizes him now. And of course, there were very unfortunate events. But then Reed said, well, I mean, there's a billionaire who, instead of buying big yacht is spending billions in order to try to develop or save this platform. Let's see. I mean, one serious comment on top of what Reed has said, and I liked it in a way, is the decisive question is whenever an owner of a media property or of a platform, and I wouldn't call Twitter a media platform, it's a different asset, but it's very influential and has an impact on politics and on society. If an owner thinks that that can be a toy of her or his own convictions, then it gets dangerous. And let's count on the wisdom that Elon and his team realizes that and have the sensitivity for that. And then I think maybe in a year from now, let's look at it. If not, then in a year, it's not so much to look at. Yeah.
How often are you in touch with him? Do you text him?
No, but I think he's busy now.
I heard from my colleagues in Washington that they had some questions for you about how often you text and about what.
But did I have an answer on that? I don't know.
I think you didn't.
Well.
Okay, you got me. All right, so we touched on democracy. You're writing a book about democracy. Tell us about where you feel democracy is foundering. We have protests in China. We have protests in Iran, Russia. Tell us about the book and what's in it. When's it coming out?
When it's coming out, I don't know. I'm just about to finish it. And I mean, the most important value to me personally, but in a way also for Axel Springer as a company traditionally, is freedom. And how to empower freedom, how to defend freedom, with that, how to strengthen the open society based on rule of law and human rights. I think those are the two most important pillars of an open and free and democratic society. And we know as a fact that democracy is threatened and in decline for many years. Freedom House, this research think tank, is evaluating the state of democracy every year. And since 16 years, democracy is objectively in decline. So they downgrade for 16 years, more and more countries from free to partly free to unfree. And now,
you famously don't do business in
we have a very strict policy. We only do business in democracies because otherwise we would immediately enter moral hazard. We would have either to make compromises with non-democratic systems or even accept censorship, and that is the opposite of our idea of journalism. So democracy is in decline, and we have now some very interesting developments. The most shocking one is the war of Russia and Ukraine. For us, for me, it was no surprise because after the annexation of Crimea and basically the West really accepting that, it was clear that Putin would feel encouraged. Now there is this terrible war that was also basically possible because of the dependence that Germany particularly created through its energy policy, drop out of nuclear energy and then buying more and more gas from Russia, bringing the consumption of energy from Russia from 30+% to 50+% in a few years. That basically created the Putin who now attacked freedom and democracy. And I personally, I'm really, really worried that that is only the first chapter. And if that has not a good ending, and at the moment it looks better than expected, but if that has not a good ending, China will be the next. And then I think it really is a turning point. And then I think our values and democracy can really be existentially undermined. And that's the book about. And then I have a very concrete proposal what could be done in order to avoid that. But perhaps we keep that as a cliffhanger for the next meeting where I then present my solution.
So I'm sure a lot of the staff are users of TikTok, and if not, their kids are. You do not think that anybody should be on TikTok. You think that this is a tool of the Chinese government?
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean,
why should we care about the Chinese knowing that I watch cooking videos or cat videos or whatever?
Well, it's not that harmless. I mean, first of all, don't get me wrong, TikTok is the smartest algorithm around, probably the best positioned social media company, content company. They employ more content creators than the entire entertainment industry. They have more than 1 billion clients, more than 25% market share in the young cohorts that everybody wants to reach. So it's the gorilla in the room, the best of the best. The only downside is that it belongs to a Chinese company, that voting rights are 100% in the hand of Chinese companies, and all Chinese companies are indirectly in the hands of the Communist Party of China, and all promises about data protection and so on are pretty unrealistic. For that reason, I think it matters whether the very personal sensitive data and behavioral data and information are transparent to a system like China. And that's why I think, as I said publicly, TikTok, as it is today in the present governance, should be banned in democracies.
Mm-hmm. Let's bring it back to Insider again. Let's talk about social justice. What are we doing about making our C-suite more diverse? What are we doing about gender pay gaps? Talk to me about how the Me Too scandal unfolded with Bill. The editor was forced to leave. He had a relationship with a staff member. Is there anything you would do differently if you could do it all over again?
Yeah, we have done things differently. We learned from that traumatic experience, which was really, really terrible. But I think we learned seriously and changed things. It's interesting that under the impression of the Weinstein Me Too scandal, I suggested to implement rules, what you can do and what you can't do, and you cannot have relationships in hierarchy and so on. And that was rejected by our labor representatives, interestingly. So the unions didn't accept it because they said it's an interference in personal individual rights. After that terrible experience, we were able to convince them and to implement such a rule. So now there's clarity, what you can do, what you can't do. We have implemented new tools that encourage people who are victims of misbehavior to speak up. They have tools internally, they always had. They had tools externally. They also had for a while, but now they have also tools externally where you can speak up without disclosing your identity. So I think the whole system got more sophisticated. We also implemented serious cultural change projects in order to create an atmosphere. And I think that is always the most important, where really people dare to speak up if something goes wrong. So I think now the focus is that may not happen again. And if it happens, and you can never exclude it in a company with 18,000 employees, then I think we are better prepared to act better, faster, and really have learned from that.
Mm-hmm. And then just on the diversity issue and the C-suite?
I think we traditionally doing pretty well. We have, I mean, that is in America an issue for many, many years and decades. In Germany, we have started more than a decade ago with such an initiative, equal chances for all gender careers and so on. And we are definitely among the first, and we made great progress. And then we were lagging behind a little bit. I think in general, if it is about gender diversity, religious diversity, diversity in the broader sense of the world, very much focused also on the empowerment of LGBTQ plus rights and networks. We have said we are not basically tolerating different sexual identities or preferences. We said and have written that we basically encourage our people. We want to benefit from the talent pool. We cannot limit the talent pool, and we want to have a work environment and a culture of tolerance and open-mindedness. So I think that is traditionally very important to us. In this case that you have referred to was a terrible setback, yeah, because you have one case and that can, in a way, ruin the whole image. Let's take it as a positive. Perhaps that is a kind of incentive, an accelerator for even more progress on that level.
And in terms of things that you would have done differently, you would have perhaps got rid of the editor-in-chief sooner, or?
Yeah, had we known what we know today, yes.
Okay.
But that's in retrospect always easier to say. Yeah. It's very complicated sometimes. Yeah.
Can you give us a little scene setting? What else does Axel Springer own? What are the German assets? How's the German economy going?
Okay, I give you a kind of org overview. So basically, the company is based on two main pillars: digital journalism and digital classifieds. Why is that so? Because in the old world, a newspaper was basically journalism that monetized by the paying reader, paying advertising clients, and paying classified advertising clients. And that was a very important economic backbone. So we said, let's invest in digital classifieds, jobs and real estate. So for jobs, it's Stepstone. It's the European market leader in digital job classifieds. They are doing incredibly well during the crisis because they are a major beneficiary of that global trend of scarcity of labor. Mm-hmm. So they are doing incredibly well, and as soon as possible, we would like to IPO that company that they have unlimited access to cash, and we can use some of the proceeds in order to invest into our digital media business. The same is true for Aviv, that is a job classified portal out of 9 different geographies, one company. That is the second very important asset. Then in Germany, Bild and Welt. Bild is a kind of mass market, popular information and entertainment brand that is meanwhile also mainly a digital brand, but has a kind of print element still. The same is true for Die Welt. It's also print and online, but more and more digital. And Welt is a kind of very intellectual, liberal subscription content brand. Those are the 2 main brands in Germany. Then there is Onet in Poland. It is the market-leading digital platform of information, general interest information, very similar, you could say, in a way, to Insider in a certain way. And then we have in America Insider, Morning Brew, and Politico. I don't have to tell you about that. And then we have a price comparison company. It's called Idealo, that gives you the information where you can buy a product at the best price, and a performance marketing company called Awin. Those are the main assets, and that shows you a bit. It's what used to be encapsulated in the old analog world in one product, in one newspaper, is now in a way separated in different entities, job classifieds, real estate classifieds, advertising, performance marketing, and most importantly, digital journalism, which is now fortunately a great business model, and that's why that is going to be the main focus of the company going forward.
Of the entire company?
Yes, we will step by step separate these other assets that are not journalistic through IPOs, and then focus with the proceeds entirely on the growth of digital journalism.
Can I ask you, Matthias, if we're profitable here at Insider?
Yes, we are. Yeah, surprisingly profitable.
How profitable? You're on the board of Netflix, you're on the board of Warner Music. Tell us about the lessons that we can learn from very successful businesses that have been in the subscription world for many years before anybody else.
So one lesson that particularly Henry loves to hear, and Barbara, that is focus entirely on growth and not on short-term profitability. If you can find a way to balance that in order to remain robust and kind of unattackable in difficult macro environments like at the moment, you should do that. Everything else would be unreasonable, but the main focus is that. And the second big learning is passionate focus on quality of the product, which means in our case, passionate focus on journalistic excellence. Never underestimate that. Never go for the short-term superficial gain that may ruin the reputation or it may ruin the credibility. Trust and credibility remain the most important success factors by a kind of excellent product. And perhaps the third lesson, and here particularly Netflix is interesting, is culture eats strategy for breakfast. We know that. It's an old sentence by Peter Drucker. But a modern, truly diverse, inclusive culture is a success factor. That means also tolerance for different views. We are an intellectual product, so also the diversity of views and opinions, I think, is super important.
Great. I think we're coming up on time right now, actually. Yeah, 27 minutes.
How many
25. We've got 2 minutes left. Anybody else got a question?
Yeah, perhaps a spontaneous question in the room.
All good. I think we'll probably end it there then, Matthias. Thank
you
so much.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
nobody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.